Hey everyone, you're listening to the Pondering Points podcast. I am your host, Apostle MB. As a pastor, politician, podcaster, and life coach, I will be sharing with you my knowledge, my thoughts, my wisdom, and sometimes my concerns, all flavored with the Word of God, so that it might empower you, encourage you, and equip you. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Pondering Points. Let's get started. I got a point for you. Hey guys, what's up and welcome to Pondering Points podcast. I am your host, Apostle MB. Man, I am delighted in having you joining with me on the broadcast on today. I pray you all are doing well and that you are continuing to stay safe and just continuing to to be who God had called you to be. One of the things that I said at the beginning of in my intro is that sometimes I talk about my concerns. And today that's what you're going to get, my concern, something that really concerns me. And I believe that it is high time for us to see some changes taking place in our world, in our communities, even in our lives. So today I want to talk about let's get together. Let's get together. By now, most of you guys know that there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this world. From the national level, and I mean, not just in our United States, but there's a lot of stuff going on even in other countries. But there are also a lot of stuff going on locally. And there are a lot of things that we're dealing with as people. And there are all sorts of stuff nationally as well as locally we're dealing with gun violence is one of the major issues that we're seeing on an uprise, and things are taking place. Drugs, gang activities. And it seems like that a lot of this stuff is settling among our youth. And we're seeing, more than ever, I've never seen this, so many young people under the age of 50 that are losing their lives from one thing to another. Guns playing a part, as well as so many other things that's happening that it's alarming and it's concerning to me. And I really believe, ladies and gentlemen, that something needs to be done. Now, this is nothing new. Now, I want to say this. This is nothing new. We've seen issues and calamities and problems that have gone on in our world over the years, over the centuries, that issues, things going on. But the sad thing, and this is what I'm seeing, from the natural perspective, as well as from the spiritual perspective. We all are divided. Maybe I may not even use the word divided too fully, but we are all grouped into groups, or divided into groups. And I'll use an example. There are many groups in this world. There are many groups in our society. We're grouped by age. We're grouped by color. We're grouped many times by finances. The money that we make. We're grouped by our gender. We're grouped by political parties. I've heard some people say, well, I'm not Republican nor am I Democrat, but I'm independent. Well, there's an independent group. And so you're still grouped, whether you are part of the popular parties or whether you are in something different. You're still in a group. We're our political parties, our educational groups, our social groups that we have. We're grouped in that. And the thing is, what happens is it seems like that we tend to settle in our groups and try to blame the other people for the problems that we're dealing with. I see even on the national or upper level that the problems, it is the Republicans. When certain things like the Roe versus Wade was passed, it is the Republicans. Then when we deal with the gun violence and trying to control the guns, it's another party. And so it's almost like everybody is in their groups and everybody is blaming everybody. One group is blaming the other group, and no one wants to come together and say, let's deal with this issue. And somewhere, guys, we've got to get this thing. We got to get together. We've got to come together and combat this thing, because at the end of the day, whether it is a Republican child or whether it is a Democratic child, whether it is a black child or a white child, whether it is a child out of the country club or a child from off the streets, wherever it is still dealing with the same problem, whether it is a result of gun violence, whether it is a drug overdose, whether it is whatever, it draws right back to the same problem, guys, that need to be addressed. And oftentimes we overlook it and we point the blame to other people. And something has to be done, and this is the problem. And this is where I'm going at on today. And this is why I'm kind of sounding this alarm here, because even in our local city, we just recently, just a couple of days ago, had a young man to lose his life in a car wreck. Prior to that, had a young man that someone pulled up, from my understanding, and shot him to death in less than 12 hours. A family is out barbecuing and someone comes and shoot. And as a result, 6 people were shot, 2 of them being children. And then even further back from that, a young lady sitting in her home, in her apartment, and someone from the outside opened fire and end up and kills her and shot up her house. And yet no charges has been brought to pass. And so again, we blame certain things. Well, the police need to do better. This needs to happen better. But yet and still, ladies and gentlemen, it still negates the fact that there's a problem. And something need to be done with the problem. And in order to do it, we're going to have to come together. Now, this is the problem. Amos 3:3. Now, y'all know how I roll. Even in my rant and even in my concerns, I'm going to give y'all some scriptures. Amos 3:3 tells us simply a fact together that how can 2 walk together except for they agree? Now, I want y'all to hear me well today, because it concerns me, especially how we ignore the problem and the issues, but we will degrade one another. And we will put people on blast. And we will do things and say things instead of coming together and saying, you know what? Listen, you don't like me for this reason, and I may not like you for that reason. But neither one of our dislikes is going to put us short of any place. In other words, we're not going to miss a meal. We're not going to lose our life over that. So I believe we need to release some of the problems that we have with one another, and let's join forces together and fight this enemy, because that's what it is. And the enemy works in ways, ladies and gentlemen, to keep us all focused to the real problem, so that we will end up and fight one another and not fight him. But Amos 3:3 said, how can 2 walk together except for they agree? And I really believe the agreement is not dealing with one another agreement, but I believe that the agreement is dealing with the problem that we're coming together to deal with and to combat and to fight and to challenge. There's forces of evil, I believe, that have settled down even within our city, that we as Christians are going to have to come together and fight these forces, or these forces will overtake our city. And we have to be in unison of that. And I'm almost finished here because I just really wanted to drop just a little bit in there. Psalms 133, verse 1 and verse number 3. Look what David said. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. For there the Lord commanded the blessings. We can't be blessed if we are divided. I need to say that again. We cannot be blessed if we are divided. And ladies and gentlemen, when we settle down in our groups, in our social groups, and settle down into our racial groups and into our other groups, and we settle down even in our churches, and we overlook the fact that we still have a problem going on. And one of those problems, guys, is dealing with our youth. We're losing, even in church, we're losing our youth. I read a study and it said that by the age of 9 years old, I want y'all to hear me well, that youth begin to disconnect themselves from the church. It may not evolve until they become 16, 17, and 18, but the disconnection starts as early as 9 years old. There's a generation that's carrying the church, but that generation is waiting for the future generation to get to a certain age so that they can take the helm and carry the church on. This is the problem. This is the problem. Because I see it even right recently with one of the national voices speaking up, Dr. Creflo Dollar speaking up and talking about the tithe and offering. Now there is a issue that has evolved in that. And see, not even realizing that the enemy is sitting back laughing because he's got the church yet again in an uproar, yet again in a turmoil, yet again in a fight against itself. And look, how can two walk together except for they agree? How good and how pleasant it is for brothering to join together in unity. And I'm saying this to you today, and I hope you guys, if you would, be so gracious and kind to share this broadcast. Share this on your timeline. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to bypass. Listen, matter of fact, let me give you these points because I'm jumping ahead of myself. But we got to do something. We really, really got to do something, ladies and gentlemen, not just with our youth. There are other issues. But as long as the enemy can keep us divided, and keep us pointing our fingers at one another and saying, you are the reason. If you'll change your mind, you're the reason. If you'll change your thoughts, you're the reason. And if you'll do it like me, and instead of saying, let me overlook the problem, let me back up, let me stop focusing on your problem, and let's do something to really deal with the real problem that's at hand. We've got some real issues, ladies and gentlemen, going on in this world. Some real issues. If you would type in the comment box, real issues going on. I am just as serious as I could be. Some real issues, ladies and gentlemen, that's going on, and they're dealing with our future. And I talked about this, I think, last week, that it's about our future. It's dealing with our future. They're getting access to guns. They're getting access to drugs. They're getting access to other things. There's so many things that's going on. And while we sitting, I'm gonna just use it from the angle that I'm in while we're sitting in the church, fussing over the color of windows, the color of the carpet in the pews, whether we're going to have, whether the music is too loud or whether we're going to do this or do that, while we're fussing and arguing over all those things so that we can get our agenda passed, so that we can move forward and what we want to see happen. There is a force of evil that is pushing its agenda on our youth. So what do we do, Apostle Bateman? I've got three points, and I'm going to be out of here. Point number one, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we want to get away from it, much as we want to deny it, and as much as we want to run from it, number one, we need to come together and pray. We need to come together and pray. Let's get together. Let's get together and pray. Call on the name of the Lord. If you look in the Bible, in many situations, that's what the men and women of God did. When David came back in the Old Testament, when David came back to Ziklag from war, the city was burned up, and his wives and the children were gone. And David, the men with him talked about killing him. And the Bible said, and David put himself into a place and he inquired of the Lord. He prayed, shall I pursue? And if I pursue, will I recover? Listen, is it worth me leaving? And God told him, God answered. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, we come together and call upon his name in prayer with no specific intentions other than talking to God and pray. I believe we'll hear from heaven. That's what the scripture said. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and look and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked way, then I will hear from heaven and heal your land. Ladies and gentlemen, our land is in a mess. It is in a mess, and we've got to do better with our land. So we need to come together and pray. We need to come together and pray. Point number two, we need to bypass all of these groups, overlook their differences. Bypass these groups. I didn't say not include them. But I believe when we come together to pray and listen and to figure out, plan and figure out how we're going to do some things, I think everybody plays a major part. White, black, rich, poor. Come on, somebody. Everybody plays a major part. Every fraternity, every sorority, all of the groups need to come together. Civic groups need to come together. We all need to come together. The church, everybody. And listen, bypass this. Bypass the groups, overlook the differences. Because you know what, at the end of the day, when you've got a young person that's dead, that gun violence, don't say because you live in the country club or because you live in a gated community, that gun is not going to shoot. That gun is not going to say because you are white or because you're Hispanic. That gun is say, well, I'm only shooting certain people. No, it doesn't work like that. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to bypass all of this other stuff, all of these differences, even the hang-ups that we've got with people. And we need to come together because there's a bigger dog in the yard. And if we don't address it, it's going to eventually find its way in the house, and it's going to attack and destroy everything that is important. Point number three, and I'm wrapping it up. We got to focus on these issues, these problems that we got in this world, so that we can see some changing taking place. That requires planning and strategizing. So we need to pray. We need to bypass all of these groups and their differences and overlook their differences. And three, we got to focus on the problem. This is the issue. My issue with you and your issue with me most of the time has nothing to do with the real issue at hand. But as long as the enemy, Satan, can keep us at odds with one another, we won't ever fight him. And he'll keep right on doing one little thing to another little thing to another little thing to keep us from focusing on him, He's the real problem, and we begin to solve that problem. Let me give you an illustration and I'm done. Two men standing out in the yard and they're needing a ditch for drainage. One man said, I don't like you because you're black. The other man said, well, I don't like you because you're white. But the problem is still going on. The property is still flooding. The issue is still taking place. Rain keeps falling. There's still a problem. And oftentimes we get caught up in that. Then we get caught up in the fact of who's really right. Who's wrong, who's right, the issues that they've got. But yet the problem still exists. What I believe that the Lord is telling us today is bypass your feelings. Bypass your feelings. Overlook the differences and let's come together and let's confront these issues in this world. Some things come out only through by fasting and praying. Some of these things we're going to have to get on our knees, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to have to pray and fast. We're going to have to pray. You say, well, Apostle Beck, this is a natural issue. Yeah, but it is being influenced by a spirit, Satan. So we've got to get on our guard, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to get on guard. The church got to get back on guard. We got to get back refocused. Everybody got to get on guard. Because if not, the problems that we see in this world is not going to get any better. The problems in our community are not going to get any better. They're going to continue to persist and get worse and worse. And we're going to continue to see things happen, continue to hear things happen. So we've got to get on target and we got to get on focus so that we can see some things transpire and some things change for the better. Don't you want to see better? Don't you want to see things get better in our world today? And I know the Bible tells us that, things are going to be tougher, but it's time for change. That's all I have for you today. I pray you be blessed. Have a great day. Have a fantastic week until I see you next week again. Shalom.